We have two world-renowned photographers living and working here in the Low Country. One is a former White House photographer. The other is a National Geographic photographer. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with Callie and Vincent Musi one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Callie and Vincent Musi, it's so good to see you all.
It's great to see you.
I appreciate
so excited about doing this.
Yeah.
You so honored.
Oh, hey, I'm honored to be sitting by world-renowned photographers.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, very greatly. You're welcome. You are a National Geographic photographer.
That's right.
You took a lot of photos in the White House during the President Clinton's administration.
Yes, and then I went to work for Time and CNN right now.
CNN right now. And I'm looking over here at your latest book. It's called Hope, Never Fear. It obviously portrays basically the life of President Obama and Michelle Obama.
Yes, it kind of goes, starts in 2004 and goes through the campaign of 2007, 8, 9, and then follows them a little bit in the White House to 2016. So it was kind of a time before he was a rock star to being president, and finishes it up as president.
When you look at that title, Hope, Never Fear, what goes to your mind now?
You mean like what's kind of the thought behind it?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there are times in our history in the United States where people have tried to maybe keep people down through fear. Civil rights movement, slavery, even the period we're in right now. I think a lot of people use that fear to paralyze people. So I think the point that I've tried to get with my book is, with your heart, your soul, you can overcome anything. You've got a brain, you've got your body, no one can keep you down. So I think we have to look and push forward using hope and stop the fear. It's just people I think cowards use fear to paralyze us. And I think as long as you keep hold of that hope, and I believe that the Obamas tried to give that kind of view of providing hope to people to say we can overcome anything. And so I think right now in our country, I believe a lot of people are fearful of where our country's going. I feel like I'm hoping my book will empower people to take back our country and move forward and to accept all people and to move us forward.
When you look at the view of what's going on in this country right now, particularly with politics, how would you take a photograph of what's going on right now in Washington?
You mean one? Well, that would be pretty hard, one photograph. I'd spend a lot of time documenting politicians.
Okay.
I photographed President Trump. I find I just watch. I try not to be too opinionated. So, I think right now it's just, I find the current place, I think if you just document what's going on, it's going to show, they're pretty out there on what they feel, the isolation and the judgmental. I think what we have to show right now is not so much this current administration. I think we need to focus more on the people that are being held back. I think that people need to see more of the people that are suffering. I think we give too much attention to President Trump and his administration, and even to the Congress and the politics that go on behind it. I think more people need to see who the Americans are, from people who are coming into our country to people who are being forced to leave our country. And we need to focus on that. It's the same thing, I think, maybe when you look at gun violence. We spend too much attention sometimes given to the person who is using the gun as opposed to the people who have been taken from us because of the gun violence. So the way I would hopefully try to show what's going on in our country is portraying the people that make up our country and to remind people, what our country is made up of.
And Vincent, obviously, for the past 25 years, you have photographed diverse subjects, as she just talked about, from traveling Route 66 to global warming, life under volcanoes, illegal immigration, and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. If you could take a photo of what's your life been like as a photographer now, what would it be?
Man, it would be a mess.
I'm visualizing it.
We're both like the luckiest people in that I never grew up with any great wealth or was never really a participant in many things, but photography has allowed me to have a place where I've been able to witness so many things around the world in people's lives. From the birth of children to people, I've had people shoot at me, I've seen things die, I've seen people take their own life. We've been able to do great things with photography. From going
See everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's really an amazing ticket to be able to share lives with people in the way that you're doing it. A natural curiosity for what's going on behind what's happening over there. And so photography's allowed us to do that. And so if you were to make it into one photograph, it would be a mess because it's just like a Indy car swerving out of control for a long time.
When I approached you about doing an interview for Quintin's Close-Up, she's like, hey, why do you need to interview me? Because I shoot nothing but dogs these days.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because you started off in journalism at Ohio University, and now you're a world-renowned photographer, and now you're just simply shooting dogs.
Well, I don't know how world-renowned we are, but we have a son who was turning 16, and in order for us to work, we both have to get on airplanes and leave the low country to do that. We have very little workforce here, and we tried to figure out a way out of that, and the answer for me was to try to create a body of work about dogs, a curiosity again about dogs, and using the same kind of things that I've done for the last 20 years at Geographic of photographing animals. Could we do that? And so I wrote Callie into this, and we've been able to stay here and work and not have to leave, and that's kind of where the dogs came from as a project. And
have clients, because he's had clients come from Canada, California, Texas, to us, which is nice because all our work has always been going to other people. And we spent most of the first 10 years of our son's life tag teaming. He would leave, and then we'd swap out.
Right. And
it's really depressing because our son's going to leave us in a year. He won't let us go to college with him, unfortunately. But I'm kidding. So, the dogs have been a wonderful way to stay here. And Vince is an amazing writer.
Yeah.
And so he writes about the dogs, which is fun. My son and I, we pushed him towards that.
Yeah.
The way to use his writing and his humor, which has been, I think that's my favorite part, is the stories about the dogs.
The stories about dogs. Which dog relates to you?
Boy, I think they all do, but the ones that I relate to more than them relating to me, are the ones that are flawed in some way. We don't have a lot of show dogs, fancy dogs.
Oh.
We have dogs that are missing a leg or an eye, dogs that got into trouble.
Dog was shot.
Yeah, we had a dog that was shot. And I'm fascinated by the love that these animals bring with them and bring people together. And you asked about the dog. A lot of my colleagues think, what's happened to him? He's photographing dogs now. And I kind of think it's a great privilege to do it, quite honestly. And people come to us, but we've just discovered so many extraordinary things and found this community of people that I don't know that follow us on Instagram. That read the dogs and read about the dogs and write me every day, and it's an extraordinary thing. It's very cool.
We also Vince took a concept, because people say, "Oh, you photograph dogs now," but if you haven't seen his work, what people don't understand is he tries to take some of his idols like Irving Penn, and he tries to make the photographs art. It's something you put up on your wall.
Right.
It's not just a happy picture of your dog and you're running it through. So every dog, we spend 2 hours at least photographing these dogs. First, trying to get the dogs to be comfortable with us.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes trying to make sure the owners are comfortable. And developing a rapport, and then he tries to make sure that in the end you really see the dog for the dog and the character and what it means. And we've had some amazing people come to us, and the relationship of what the dogs have done for the owners and the owners have done for the dogs. I mean, he used to get people write him and would say, "My dog saved me." And we would go, "Yes, everyone says that." We found that there are dogs that have saved their owners. I mean, whether it's working through something terrible that's happened to them, or depression,
right.
or so it's just been kind of a wonderful relationship. It's and I think for us we've met a lot of nice people.
It's also allowed us to really explore our relationship in the writing and explore sort of my childhood, because I write about a lot of things that were influential in both good and bad ways. As a child, I write about my mother feeding my brother's dog, and write about Callie's family having St. Bernards and things like that. And I wrote about us walking hand in hand in the grocery store grand opening the other day. So I think it's sort of this personal blog, and we write about the dogs. Sometimes at the expense of the dogs, it becomes more about us, but it's certainly fun. Yeah.
I think that all came about realizing that people's dogs, it is about them. The dog is a part of them. So I think what's wonderful about Vincent's writing is, he comes from this Greek Italian family where, his mother was this amazing cook, and she would literally stick food in your mouth. I mean, she would take you and go, "Quintin, baby, you're so thin. Oh, baby, I feed you." And there's so much. You would walk in this tiny house, and you would have felt like you knew them forever. And so I think Vince's writing, we've had nurses tell us that they'll wait if it's been a bad day in surgery or the hospital, they hold on to his post and then they read it together as a group, so they'll laugh, and because I think by writing about the dogs but also about ourselves, it lets people talk about themselves. They don't want to hear, you can only say so much about the dogs. And so when he opens up about his life, people are like, "Oh, I love Sonny and Cher too," or, "I was really upset."
Do you have a dog?
No.
Do you have a cat?
No.
Really? Did you have a dog growing up?
Yeah, Trinidad. He died, in 1998 when I was a kid.
Name.
Yeah.
What kind of dog was Trinidad?
Oh, he was,
Mutt.
basically that's what it was.
Mutt.
That's my kind of dog.
We like mutts.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Were you guys close?
Very.
Yeah.
Very, very, very.
Yeah.
we don't have a dog.
What?
We don't have a cat. We had a cat.
We have a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Kid.
That's
We're going too much because, you need to be there for
Yeah.
the kid and the dog.
Yeah.
But kids are actually easier to,
Sure.
they don't put the kid in the overhead on
Right.
the airplane
Right.
or underneath the plane. And
No.
so, but people are amazed. They're going, "You don't have a dog?" I'm going, "We're too busy photographing everybody else's dog." But this way the dogs all like us because all we do is photograph them and give them treats. So they really like us.
Right.
It's
They
like
get
going to
treated better.
grandma's house.
The dogs get treated better than me. I'm under a lot of pressure.
Oh, yes.
Never work with your wife.
Ooh.
You don't want to ever do
We
that.
do find out that we get along. We have people who say, y'all are kidding when you're going after each other. And we're like,
I don't know about that.
it's much safer than some of the crazy animals. I mean, not crazy, but lions and tigers for Geographic.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the dogs are.
I do like taking things that are commonly overlooked. And in my work before I did animals, was very much about vanishing culture, language, places like Route 66, things that are common that we tend to overlook and forget when they're gone. And I think that dogs are just one of those things that there's so many of them, and I know that they're certainly popular, but I'm looking at them in a very heroic kind of way. And I assign personalities to them, whether they're real or not, but I look for that kind of character in them and envision them doing things like driving cars and having conversations and very much anthropomorphizing these animals.
Well, he did a story on the Ace Basin.
Oh, yes.
And when he started that, so Geographic was doing places that could be in danger of disappearing.
Okay.
And so a friend of ours said, "Oh, you should do the Ace Basin." My entire life, I drove past that area, and I had never seen it until he did that story. And I've been amazed at when Geographic ran the piece. So many people that live here have said, "I never knew that was there." You know, it was like, yeah, and we got to hold on to it and admire it. So I think I've enjoyed those like stories that he does, because I think a lot of us are so busy, not just the dogs, but places where, you know, we just don't notice them and then they're gone.
You talk not only about yourselves and how obviously you are married. What would be the story that you would write to people about how you all met?
Boy, we worked at a newspaper together. We both worked for newspapers in previous life, and
He
And
thought
that's-
I was too serious, and I thought
You are
he
too
was,
serious.
He wasn't funny enough.
I'm very.
I mean, he was too funny.
Not
He
funny.
didn't take anything serious. Yeah, so at first we, you know, were going after each other. But then we,
Yeah, then we've just kind of moved around. We dated for a long time. We've been together forever. I'd
almost
say
20 years.
since the late
20 years.
since the late 50s, probably. Something like that. We had crossed paths in weird ways before we knew each other. We were both covering the uprising on the West Bank in the early stages of the Intifada in Israel. We were both in the same hotel. We never knew each other. We had crossed paths there. And also at some other professional events. And then we wound up working at the same newspaper together many, many years later.
he's a great editor and he's ruthless. So the first time I finished, had been in Pittsburgh, and I moved from Charleston, Charleston, South Carolina, to Nashville, a newspaper, then to Pittsburgh. My very first story, he said, "This is terrible. Did you mean for the person to be," you know, he just ripped me to shreds. And that's actually how we became friends. Because he was right, but it was,
Now she does that to me
yeah.
every day.
Every day.
But it's always good to have somebody with a great sense of humor in your life, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, it keeps you, you know,
Grounded.
grounded. But I think, yeah, I think we both think we married up, so it works out,
Works out.
you know.
Obviously, you worked in newspapers for many, many years. If you could write a first-person column about the difference between newspapers then and now, what would be that headline?
Boy, you know, journalism, the response to it has changed so much. And I'm totally humbled by folks who still do it every day. It's such an important part of freedom and democracy.
Right.
And I feel in some ways sometimes that we dropped the ball, that we didn't go far enough, that it's gotten to this point where we throw around things like fake news and everything is so divided, the way that we look at facts. But, you know, it's so hard, and it's for so little money to do it. The people work so hard to do this stuff, to educate and inform people of the simplest things. And we've abdicated so much of that stuff. You know, it's hard to find a newspaper now that has Little League scores in it and small things. It's hard to find somebody that does what you do, which is essentially long-form documentary
On your
work,
community.
right? Because there's not time for this on television.
Right.
There certainly isn't time for this in a newspaper takeout with the frequency that you do it.
There's no money.
And so it's been taken up in different ways. So I'm encouraged by that. And I've kind of walked away a little bit from journalism. Magazines became the next extension of that for both of us in different ways. You know, with Geographic, you could reach 40 million people in a month, and that was a big deal. And now on Instagram with Geographic, we can reach 100 million people in a day, in an hour. And it's extraordinary what you're able to do. But we need each piece of that. We need what you're doing. We need that other level. We need that water cooler conversation about big issues. And it all fits together. So I'm always encouraged by people who are still putting this stuff out and keep doing it. And I have a huge appetite for it. I read 5 newspapers a day and then tear into the local papers, and I look at every little magazine specialty thing that I can to be more informed.
And I think it's become the, I know there's a term for it, but, you know, the media is what we beat up on. And it's like we take our frustrations out on them. We blame them. I didn't know this, and you wrote this wrong. And you're like, not really. I mean, go through history. There's so many things. There's so many lives that have been saved because of journalists and photojournalists, and they put their lives out there. So we would never have known what was going on in the Vietnam War if it wasn't for this. We would never have seen the civil rights movement. We would not have seen what was happening to people who stood up for what was right and what was wrong. We wouldn't know about it. We wouldn't know that people were, being lynched, and go through everything. Bosnia, Kosovo, Iran, everything that happened. It's because the media let us know. We can't all get there. And so I think what people try to do is back to that whole thing of fear. Because you don't want people to know what's going on, you say, oh, well, it's the media's fault. The media did this, the media did that. And we have a son that's in high school, and his generation is the one that's going to have to fix the rights and the wrongs of it. And, he's smart enough to read through and to listen to pieces that you do and other people, how it's written, and to take it in. I don't understand why other people can't do that, why adults can't. I think we've become lazy, and I'm amazed at, we've lost so many friends that have covered, Syria and wars, and, they're just, we know people that go through deep depression because they've tried to cover the issues that go on in our country, whether it's gun violence or poverty. And you don't really, as you don't make money doing this. I'm amazed that people, how little what you do and I do, but we keep people connected to the communities, and it's very important. And, if I did an editorial piece, I would just be like, if you want to waste your frustration, then go and fix stuff. Go vote. Go get involved in the community. Don't go after the press, because the media and the press and people, journalists, are the ones who let you know what's going on.
You talk about those issues. I want to bring it back home. Obviously, there's a myriad of issues going on in Charleston, from gentrification to the affordable housing. How would you, as a photographer, approach those issues?
Well, everybody has a different style to it, and mine is evolving somewhat, but I've always been a very straight documentary photographer at heart. And so a lot of the two things that fascinate me most are the changing face of Charleston, the physical changes of where buildings were and what's going up in their place, from hotels to apartment buildings and parking lots. So there's a physical change that's fascinating to me. But the one that I care about most, obviously, are the people that are being displaced or brought in or changed. Their lives are being completely changed because of this. For better or for worse, I mean, I think you approach it in the same way and allow them to tell that story. So that would be my approach to doing it. You would have a completely different way of doing it.
That would be a lot like that. I mean, our styles are very different. Vince's is much more...
Mine's much more clinical. Callie's is
no,
far
it's
more
artsy.
emotional.
His is like, I wait for, like, I'm much more into waiting hours for, like, a little moment. And he when everything was kind of boring, his picture's really interesting. I can actually capture how boring it is. No, but I wish I'd started photographing, when we moved back here 15 years ago. I wish I'd taken more images of places so that I could contrast what's gone.
Oh, yeah.
And when I go into areas that as a kid,
Oh, yeah.
Churches that were there.
Right.
I mean, I could be wrong. I feel like a lot of the black community is being pushed out. Maybe I'm wrong. I just think of places I used to see and they're not there anymore. What I really think is fascinating, what I grew up in Charleston, is I find that the AME churches are almost like their own little entities. I mean, they hold people together. They're, that's where you go for your family support, your community support, and I think that after the Emmanuel shooting, it showed us how much these areas teach us to come together, and acceptance and peace works better. So, you know, I would probably go more into like little community, you know, just photographing little groups of people and, you know, how they connect. And, you know, there's just down on Vanderhorst, I think it is, there's this great funeral home where all the guys sit out and they talk to you every day.
Oh yeah,
And you go by.
Smith McNeil.
Yes, I love them. And one day I was going by and I said, how are you gentlemen doing? It's still my favorite line. This is what I tell people when they say, how are you doing? He goes, I'm above ground. And I was like, that's a great answer. I was like, you're right. And so, you know, I think we both would love to photograph all the communities and the changes. Unfortunately, don't quite have that money. But, you know, someday. It's a hard, projects are really, you probably find this too. I mean, Quintin, you work 2 other jobs in addition to doing this, and so that's kind of what we have to do in order to do the dogs or a project. We're just piecing it all together to be able to afford to do it. And, you know, it's a wonderful place, but Charleston is really, I think I don't know, it's a very unaffordable place, I find, at this time.
You talk about this time. Obviously, we're in June. And we're coming up in the next 2 weeks on the 4th year remembrance of the tragedy of Mother Emanuel. If you were to photograph the Mother Emanuel community and the victims and their family 4 years ago to now, how would you photograph them?
Well, that takes a huge amount of courage. Our son went to Buste at the time.
Right.
And so...
I had a lot of friends whose families were lost there. You know, because it's right across the street.
Right.
Some of his... the Dillards and people had Dillards.
Oh yes,
lost several family members, and I think it was you know, I don't know, how would you? He could do beautiful portraits of people. I would probably like just photograph the church. Now. You know, I would have loved to. I wanted to photograph the church before the thing.
Right.
My way of doing it would be to go in and just photograph the life that goes on, that continues in that church. And I find that Vince's makes, I mean, he photographs dogs, but his people portraits are absolutely stunning and beautiful. They're actually my favorites. Yeah, they're so, you know.
That's a hard one and an important one. And sometimes I think that for us, we just wanted to be part of a community, not just live in one. And I think that's kind of the transition, is that our whole lives have been spent sort of parachuting into places where sometimes bad things have happened like that, and sometimes good things. And you're trying to make the best of it, befriending people in times of great tragedy, and you do your best. And we have a lot of friends who do that, and that's how we educate people. But I'm also drawn to, I'm fascinated to see the book that Jennifer Oz wrote.
Right.
I really want to read that.
I'm interviewing her soon.
Okay, and so she was a parent at our school as well. You know, those kinds of things are what make up what drives me now in a different way than sort of merely parachuting in. Is that you feel a different sense of commitment to do it, and quite frankly, there's a fear level to it. It's like that's a huge responsibility, and sometimes I kind of curl up in a ball and go, I'm going to do something else, you know. But
it's a great place because, you know, the one thing I've always said, if you live here or if you are from South Carolina, you know, you walk down the street, wait long enough, and you're going to run into someone you're related to, or you know, we're all related, and you know them. And so it's like the first time I met you, I was walking down the street, and I was like,
yes,
Quintin, can I have my picture made with you? You know, and I love that about Charleston, and that people want to know each other.
Sure.
And I'm always amazed sometimes nowadays when someone will walk by and you smile at them, they don't smile back.
Right.
You want to go, where are you from? You know, when I was a kid, if a parent or someone said hello to me and I was on my bike, by the time I got home, you know, they had already gotten home, called my mom on the real phone and said, oh, well, I saw Callie, but she didn't say hello. I would be like, I was on a bike, I promise I didn't see them. But, you know, when our son was in kindergarten at Buste, we did a project where Vince set up a big studio backdrop, and we photographed we did a portrait of every kid in the school, all 400, I guess it was about 3 something. We did individuals, and then after we finished each class, we put the teacher on the canvas and all the kids. And in the end of the project, what was so amazing was to see the diversity that was in the school at the time, the age groups, and at the end, we had some of the kindergartners with the 8th graders, and they were all hugging each other and holding each other, and we had like a group of the 8th graders did a musical number together, stomping and clapping. And when I go back still and look at that project, it means so much. And we were having dinner at the house of the principal at the time, a woman named Sally Ballard.
Okay.
And we were talking about that project. And so now it's 10 years later, she runs to the back of her house and comes out and pulls out copies of the pictures that we made, that she's kept. And we continually get people who say, I still have that picture, it's on my wall. I think projects like that are, really wonderful. And there are people here that have done that for the community. And, when you go back later, just kind of, they're simple projects, but they're important.
Yeah, my thing is kind of over the top. So one of the ways that we felt that we could meet everybody in the school was to photograph everyone. So every kid, every teacher, every cafeteria worker, everybody that worked in the offices, and we're still friends with
Jesse Singleton, he had been there for 19 years. And my son, every kid in that school knew Mr. Singleton. He was just like an icon. It was like the first time my son went after he left and went to high school, first person he went back to go see was Mr. Jesse, as they all call him. And I think I think those projects would be great if more schools and more places did them, because they're lasting.
Jack Alterman's.
Oh, yes.
A number of great ones.
Right.
That's my buddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
From homeless to people that work on the bridge to people that live in the neighborhoods to the storefronts. He's been very much at the forefront of documenting changes in town. And it doesn't seem like it at the time until you go back 5 years, 10 years later and look at that work and how important and how valuable it is. And that's really cool, right? There's a value to it in immediacy, but also in 10, 20, 50, and 100 years. What's that stuff going to mean?
And unless you give back a little bit, a small way, but like his wife, Jeanette, she's huge. So involved in women's issues, and they were an amazing couple, supporting the city, and
Yeah, maybe you should be interviewing them.
Oh yeah, I'm coming on. I'm looking to get to her soon. And Jack, I've done 2 interviews with Jack.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah, good man.
I've seen Jack's interview.
Oh yeah, good man. Haven't seen him in a while. But if someone were to look back at your photographs, your career in the next 5, 10, 15 years, what particular photograph should they go to?
Boy, I don't have a favorite one. Callie might have a favorite, but I will tell you the things that mean something to me. And it's along the same thread about value.
Oh, yeah.
And I've unfortunately had a number of folks pass away in the last few years that I've photographed over the years. And I've been totally surprised to pick up the newspaper in another town or in a magazine and see my photograph representing that person's life with an obit. And that's so cool. Such an honor and such an amazing thing. And some of these folks have been friends of mine, and others are, people that I just worked with or knew. But to see those photographs stand in as some way that you remember them, that's pretty cool. And I feel the same way about places, that an image might stand in for a place that has changed or maybe was preserved, that it represents that it transcends the time that we're around to the next generation. And after that it becomes a historical document. We went to the UN the other day. My son wanted to visit the UN. I'd never been to the UN. And we were walking down the halls, and there was one of my photographs on the wall of the UN. And I said, I don't think it's mine. And they said, no, it's your photograph.
But I looked up and I was like, hey, there's Dad's photograph. It's from the Middle East Peace Accords. And it's President Clinton with his arms extended with Arafat and Rabin. Everybody's seen this photograph. It was so funny because the tour guide
Right.
was going, "That is your picture?" And he was like, "Yeah." And we were laughing. But it's great to, kind of be a part of history.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have photographs that that became sort of the iconic images of a guy with a funny name. You came home one day and said, "I met this guy. He's interesting. I think he might run for president one day.
Mm.
And if we lived in Washington, we'd have been friends with him."
Chicago.
Yeah.
At that time. Well, we lived in Washington, but
Yeah.
we lived in Chicago.
You've made so many iconic images of then Senator Obama. It's unbelievable. From the feet up with the holes in his shoes to, and it's incredible.
It was easier back then. Not everybody was photographing.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know if I have one favorite, but it's interesting to be able to go back and look at those photographs, or when I worked at the White House. I mean, we've been, I think, really lucky. And we have this great kid. We've both been to, been over 80 countries,
Oh, wow.
and met kings and queens. And, I think, do I have a great photograph? No, but like one of my favorite people that I've photographed, been honored to photograph, is Nelson Mandela. I mean, to the point that we were leaving his house when he was president, and I was working at the time for the White House, and the motorcade stopped, and I had to get out of the car and go up, and he's like, "Callie," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he knows my name." And he wanted to thank me for some photographs I'd sent him from a previous time we met. But he was such a great grounding person, because I always thought, if he can be nice to everyone,
Yes.
after everything he's been through,
Sure.
that's kind of my line. Why can't you? It's, just little acts of kindness go a long way.
Go a long
So, he was, for me, I was very honored, to know him, and also, Barack Obama,
Okay.
Michelle Obama.
Okay.
Again, I've been very lucky to meet some really kind people,
That's amazing. Well, Vincent and Callie, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks for interviewing us. We're so
Anytime.
excited. See, now we've done it. We've
yes.
been interviewed by Quintin, so we don't have to worry about anything else. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
You're welcome.
We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
You're
Taking
welcome.
the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.